I'm Hayden Doucette.
I'm Timothy Mariali.
And I'm Ben Weil.
And in our video, we will be discussing the 4 basic states of matter, what molecules and particles are, and finally how they relate to kinetic energy. Yes, Tim.
Aren't there 3 states of matter?
Sit back down. I need to give you a lesson. The 4 states of matter are solids, liquids, gas, and plasma.
Solids. Solid molecular structures are made up of very strong chemical bonds. This allows for very little movement and giving them a definite shape and volume. This also allows them to vibrate in one place.
Okay, let's pretend that this image that we've drawn here is a remote. As you can see, the molecules inside are packed so tightly together, they cannot move at all. They just vibrate. The structure of a liquid is vastly different than that of a solid. However, the molecules still remain close together and have chemical bonds. However, they are weak. Due to this ability, liquids are able to flow and be poured. They do not have a definite shape as they adapt to the shape of their container. However, they do have a definite volume and always take up space.
An example of a liquid is water. Water takes the shape of its container while also taking up space.
And has the ability to be poured.
Unlike liquids, the molecular structure of gas is far apart, and the particles have little to no attraction between them, like this photo. Gases do not have a definite shape or definite volume, meaning that they do not only take the shape of their container, but they also spread around as much as possible to completely fill the container. These particles and gases are actually spread apart so far that we cannot see them due to the significant amount of empty space.
An example of a gas is oxygen. Think of oxygen in a balloon. It immediately spreads out equally to fill the empty space in the balloon. The 4th state of matter is plasma. Plasma originates from gas. When gas gets hit with a lot of thermoelectric energy, atoms start to snap apart, specifically negatively charged electrons. This results with positively charged ions remaining, whilst the electrons move freely. This breaks the neutral charge in the gas, causing it to become electrically charged, meaning that it can conduct electricity and respond to magnetic fields.
Lightning is an example of plasma, since its enormous spark of electricity turns anything in the surrounding air to plasma.
These are all examples of plasma.
Matter can be described as anything that takes up space by having mass. For example, oxygen is matter since it takes up space and has mass. However, light and heat are not examples of matter since they do not have a mass and they do not take up space.
Matter is made up from little building blocks called particles. Matter is everything.
Hayden.
Can you explain to me what a particle is?
Hayden, a particle is a small localized object that can be defined by its chemical properties and physical properties, such as its volume, its mass, and its density. Particles can vary in size. They can be small and subatomic particles like atoms, or big as macroscopic particles like sand grains or flour that you use in your food.
Yes, Hayden.
But how is a molecule different from a particle?
All molecules are particles, but not all particles are molecules. This is because a molecule is a term that refers to a particle that have formed chemical bonds.
Let's test your knowledge, Hayden. What is the hydrogen atom?
I think that a hydrogen atom is a particle, but not a molecule.
Can you explain how?
Well, based on what you told me, molecule is when 2 particles form chemical bonds. This means that a hydrogen atom is not a molecule, and it is only a singular atom, and it is not chemically bonded with another atom. Yes, Ben?
Can you explain to me what kinetic energy is?
Kinetic energy is the energy that an object has because of its motion. The amount of kinetic energy depends on the mass of this object and how fast the object moves. The greater the mass or speed of an object, the more kinetic energy it possesses.
How many springs are in a basketball?
No springs in a basketball. When you dribble a basketball, you give it kinetic energy, which results in motion. Basketballs are filled up with compressed air, and when it bounces, the rubber slightly squishes, causing it to bounce back up.
Yes, Ben?
What happens to particles when energy is added, though?
Energy is added to a solid. The particles in the solid start to vibrate faster and faster. If enough kinetic energy is added to a solid, their chemical bonds start to become weaker and weaker, allowing them more movement in space, becoming a liquid. As you can see here, this represents an ice cube melting and turning into water. Energy is added to a liquid. Similarly to how particles and solids develop weaker bonds from kinetic energy, liquids develop even weaker chemical bonds, almost none at all. If enough energy is added to a liquid, the particles generate enough speed and create so much space that it turns liquid into a gas. This is a process called evaporation. You can see here. Let's take the ice from earlier. Ice, when melted, turns into water. If you put this water in a pot on the stove, the water will evaporate and turn into water vapor because of how much heat is being transferred through the pot into the water. Have any guesses as to what will happen in gas if you add kinetic energy?
I feel like that if you add kinetic energy to gas, it turns into plasma.
Well, Ben, do you know how that process works? It works a little different.
Entirely sure. Can you explain that to me, please?
When more and more kinetic energy is added to a gas, it creates even more space and makes the particles move even faster. This process is called ionization.
Gas plus a lot of energy equals plasma. Ionization is a process in which electrons are knocked off molecules, thus forming ions. When electrons break off from ions, it also breaks the neutral charge in the gas, resulting in it becoming electrically charged. This forms plasma.
Electricity from lightning turns surrounding gas into plasma.
All of this is explained by the kinetic molecular theory, the theory that all matter is formed out of moving particles. The amount of energy they have determines the state of matter in which they are in.
And that's the science of matter and kinetic energy. Thank you for watching.